Oh, guys, good, you're here. I am so excited. Guess what?
I hope this isn't about your podcast again.
Why, did you finally listen to it?
The Groomer Next Door is recorded in front of a live studio audience. Welcome to the Groomer Next Door. You're listening to my mommy and daddy.
And now our feature presentation.
And here's your host, my mommy and daddy, Chris and Stella Green.
Hello, Pups and Kittens, and welcome to another edition of the Groomer Next Door. This is episode 73, and I'm your co-host, Chris Green, and returning to our show this week is the ever-wonderful Sarah.
Hello.
Well, we are lucky enough to be sitting outside again, recording in the wonderful outdoors. Boy, I missed actually being outside all winter.
Yes.
It was not as bad of a winter, I don't think, but it's always nice to come out. All right, so this episode, our main topic is going to be the National Pet First Aid Awareness, because it's April, and that's what this month is all about. And it's about awareness for first aid for our pets. So we're going to go over a lot about that. What?
Nothing.
Nothing? Okay. Did I just say that completely off? All right.
If there's other people laughing, they understand why I'm laughing.
Okay, good.
If not, I'm not going to worry your little head over it.
Okay, well, now I'm just going to think about it the whole time. Thanks. All
Leave
right.
it to your wife to make sure you have insecurities.
Yes, and I do have many now. We'll talk briefly about the weekly roundup. We have, of course, another edition of Claire-ification. And I have a really PAWesome story this week. You see what I did there? PAWesome. Get it? No? A great story about a police officer out in California that does a lot of good for animals in need. So, got a lot of show for us this week.
Yes, and a lot of clips, which are very helpful. I like the clips that you found to insert into our show.
Yeah, I want to make sure that, it's not just us saying, hey, this is how you do it. I like a lot of different varieties, a lot of different people to actually have of experience. So, all right. Well, what stood out for you last week except for that it was all a blur to me?
About the same for me too.
It's starting to become a blur. Yeah.
The only thing that really stood out to me was that we were boarding a dog that
Oh yeah.
I could not get a readout on. Working with pets for as long as I have, and in different situations like I have. I'm not just dealing with dogs for grooming, dealt with dogs for boarding, interacting outside of any facility, just on a walking path or at a dog park, just a lot of interaction with dogs. And I always sit there and watch and study. You can't help but not to, when you're in our line of work. There was this pit bull type dog, and gorgeous, absolutely just beautiful little boy. He was about 2 years old, the pit bull was, or is. And he stayed with us for a little bit. There was a couple, I'll get into that part later. But he was brought in by Laura. Laura took him to this run. And unfortunately, with our, with the insurance that Keith has to insure Shadowwood, the insurance calls for all pit bull dogs and pit bull type dogs, mixes as well, to be hands off. Meaning that they're in an indoor-outdoor run where they can go outside and enjoy the outside, and they'll go to the bathroom out there, and then we'll bring them inside to the inside part of the run, shut the guillotine door so they can't get out. So everybody will be able to get to the outside and clean it up, disinfect it, sanitize it, and make it nice and fresh for him later. So he's not, sitting in filth. And everybody knows how much I support any kind of pit bull type dog. I don't care. I'll go up there and say hi. I shouldn't, but that's how I am. I'll go say hi to anything. And it could be a chow chow that has a leash on that says aggressive.
It's gnarling out a bone that used to actually be attached to a hand that used to be attached to a body.
Yes,
yeah.
Something like that.
Ooh, he's so cute and fluffy.
But normally I can get reads. Okay, yes, this dog is highly aggressive. Don't go near it. And then, he might be a little nervous, but I'm sure if you warm up to him, he'll be okay, or she'll be okay. This can happen, just gotta work with him. This time, I couldn't get a read out. The tail was wagging like a happy tail. Normally when dogs get real stressed out or show some sign of aggression, it is a steady wag. You can't go by, the dog's tail is wagging, it's moving, so it's happy. No, there's different types of wagging tails. So you can't go on that alone. But he was wiggling his butt. His whole back end.
Yeah, he did. He looked like he was really happy. He looked like he wanted to play and, get to know you. He did have mixed emotions. It was kind of odd.
So I go and put my hand up to the kennel. It's a chain link fence in the front part. And I put my hand up and he went for it. He actually went to bite. His teeth went through the metal. His snout was able to go through some parts of the chain link fence to try to bite down. And he'll start barking aggressively and lunging towards my hand. I stand up, back up, and his whole body starts wiggling and his tongue's hanging out to the side and just the look of happy-go-lucky. When dogs are in a fighting position and they're ready to strike, their tongues normally don't hang out to the side because they know they're going to bite their own tongue. They're normally either in their mouth or straight out. But his was hanging out to the side. So I'm like, okay, what's going on here? One of the girls couldn't get his leash and collar off, so they asked me to come and intervene due to the fact that I am so good with the highly aggressive dogs and highly shy dogs. Because there is a difference between aggressive and kennel shy. Kennel shy, they're trying to protect themselves. Aggression, they're just going to take anybody out if they mess with them. So he wasn't kennel shy. He wasn't cowering in the corner. He wasn't yawning obsessively at all. No yawns whatsoever. So I went to go get his leash off, and he lunged for the door again. With the different nifty tricks I have up my sleeve, I was able to safely remove his leash. Collar, that was another sense. That was an actual buckle collar, and I wasn't gonna get my fingers all torn. Chances of getting torn up in there. So we got the leash off, and he stayed with us for how many days?
I think he was there 5. I want to say he was there 5 because that happened, I think, on Monday, and he went home on Friday.
Okay, so
Sounds
he was there
right.
for a while. He didn't lose appetite. He ate. He drank. He went to the bathroom like normal. No loose stool. No signs of what could be stressing him out. Well, his owner came and picked up, and Keith talked to all the staff members and spoke to me and wanted to make sure that we're all on the same page where this pup probably shouldn't be boarded here with us. It's too much of a safety risk for him. And our safety, yes, we gotta keep in mind, but first of all, it's the pet's safety. Yeah, a dog bites us, the wound's gonna heal. Mental scarring on a dog lasts a little longer. So we want to make sure it's safe for them. The owner came and picked up, and we explained to the owner what happened. We took a video and showed the owner and asked the owner, is this signs and characteristics at home too? He goes, no, my dog's never acted like this. He has his own crate. He has his own that he goes into on his own when he wants to go to sleep. So he is properly crate trained. It's not like he goes into his crate when he's being a bad boy, or they're punishing him using a crate. He was actually taught how to use it properly. It's go to sleep.
Like a doggy house.
Yeah, it's his own space. It's like, a kid going to his room, or playing in his room.
Or a man going into his man cave.
Exactly.
Gotcha.
And so he goes, I don't understand this. This hasn't happened before. They have him extremely well trained, but yet coming in there just had this huge issue. I get it. The owner came back to get the dog out, and the dog actually acted the same way towards us to his owner. He was even showing aggression towards his owner. It took 20 minutes just to get the dog to calm down enough to open the kennel gate and put the leash on. And then even at that, nipped at his owner. Kind of find out, the person who dropped him off for boarding was a complete stranger. The dog and this person never met before. And then was dropped into a place that was not familiar with him. And left for several days. Dogs can get in their head like they're being abandoned.
Right.
And then they have to protect themselves. So that's where the aggression came into. Once we got him away from the other dogs that were barking in the kennel, it's a dog kennel. Dogs are going to bark. Nature, you can't just constantly scream at them, tell them to shut up, because they think that you're barking with them. Hey,
hey, we're talking now. Great, it's conversation.
Woohoo! I'm doing something right, because they're doing it too. And he got out to the front in the lobby, and the dog changed. He was fine. He did his happy-go-lucky stuff, and he was listening to the owner properly, sat down, and didn't move until the door was all the way open and the owner was ready to leave. That dog was really well behaved. Really, really well trained. But something happened coming to the kennel. He was picked up by somebody that was brand new, never met before. Dropped off into a place, never got to say goodbye to his owner or let the owner, comfort him as he was being brought back to his kennel. Everything just showed signs of this is not going to work out right. The dog's going to be stressed out.
Yeah, it almost had that sign of I'm being abandoned. I'm being put into this place. It doesn't know that it's a boarding. It doesn't know that it's not a shelter. It doesn't know that it's not...
It doesn't know it's going to get picked up.
Yeah, it doesn't know anything.
They were the third owners of this 2-year-old pit bull mix, or pit bull type dog. So, for those folks out there, if you have an emergency pop up where you have to go, because he had an emergency, the owner had to leave out of state to go to Alabama for something. Have certain things in place to where if their emergency happens, your pet is covered. And starting at a minimal emergency, like taking off real fast, make sure your pet knows at least 3 other people that it sees either regularly or enough to where the dog remembers them. So that in case you have to bolt out of town, someone else can take care of the dog and that person knows the dog. It's always best to have at least 3 other people that are aware of what the dog can do, its background, and how it reacts to certain situations. That will help minimize the stress level when having to drop the dog off, or when have to people come over to house sit or check on the dog while you're gone. Whether it's for a couple hours or a few days and the dog has to stay with somebody or with a kennel. Make sure they know somebody. That's another case of emergency. Got to do that.
Very good point. Yeah, he was an odd dog.
Yeah, it was a new one for me. I haven't had a dog that I haven't been able to read. He was the first one for me.
All right, well, let's move on to Claire-ification. So sit back and enjoy a moment with Claire. I am standing here right now with Claire Green. You just got done with your second soccer game of the spring season. How was it?
Good. And guess what?
What?
I just scored a goal.
Yes, you did. You did score your first goal of spring. Now, you did really well last year scoring goals.
And I just have 5 goals.
Altogether, since you've been playing soccer, yes.
And I almost scored a goal again.
Yeah, you had a few chances of scoring.
Yes.
Now, of course, Mommy was filming you at your game, so all those videos will come up later, but what was it like?
I was not looking at the ball because I want to be serious on the ball.
Right, you want to be serious when you're playing. Now, yesterday you had a school play, your first play at school. What was that like?
Today I went to the
Carnival.
The carnival.
Yeah, but remember yesterday? Remember Mommy and I went to your school play yesterday?
Yes, and we just did the song.
Would you sing the song for everybody?
Yes.
Go ahead.
1 little 2 little 3 little sheep, 4 little 5 little 6 little sheep, 7 little 8 little 9 little sheep, 10 little sheep and all. Bah.
Thank you. That was fun. Anything else you want to talk about?
Yes.
Okay.
A long time ago, I think I scored like 3 goals. And on the game, I just scored on when we was playing soccer practice. And today, I just scored today.
You did score today. You did really well today. I was really proud of you. And you were playing really good defense, too.
You're welcome.
All right, well, this has been Claire-ification for this week. Thank you for being with us.
You're welcome.
Bye.
Bye.
And that was our darling Claire in our little segment that we call Claire-ification.
When we put Claire on this podcast, it's not to glorify her as in, our daughter's just the cutest thing in the world. Whose kid's ever cuter than this? No, we do all this because of her. We work as hard as we do because of her, and she is a big inspiration in our life. So we want to make sure she gets a little bit of time to feel special, and maybe when she's older, she can look back and think, "Oh my gosh, I sounded like that when I was a little girl."
Yeah.
Oh my gosh.
And the whole podcast always started for her, and she's always the most excited about us doing the podcast. This is something that she gets a lot out of, even though, she doesn't come out here and record it with us and stuff like that. She's there when we actually do our interviews with baseball players when we're on the field. She's there when we do a lot of different things, and she gets to see all the dogs and the cats and everything. So there's a lot of it that she's a part of, but I think a lot of this is she doesn't understand what a podcast is. I mean, she's 6.5, but she knows that Mommy and Daddy do something, and she just wants to be a part of it in any way possible. So yeah, we put her on here so that she feels like she's a part of it. Even before we went on, she came to me and she goes, "Daddy, we did my part for the podcast already, right?" And I go, "Yeah, we did it last night." She goes, "Okay." So it's very important to her that she gets to be a little bit of a part of this, and it's a very important thing to her. If we don't do the show, she would feel bad. Even she's still like Sarah said, a little bit too young to actually sit down and listen to them. But Claire of the future will listen, I'm sure.
Yeah.
All right. Well, we'll move on to our next one. This story came out this past week. It's a sheriff out in Southern California, and she does a lot of good. There's a reason why I actually wanted to put this in. We get a lot of messages throughout the week from different people who listen to the show all over the world, and I've said it a million times. It's a lot of fun to hear from everybody, whether you're down the street or literally on the other side of the world. I always enjoy hearing that you've enjoyed our show. You're either subscribing to us on iTunes or on YouTube. All that is really important to us. And that's the other thing. We keep getting subscriptions to our YouTube page, and I just think that that's amazing. Whether it's for our video podcast, which I know we haven't done one in the last few weeks. It's just been too hectic to do. Yeah. And we have all these videos that are lined up, and we just can't seem to find the time. I mean, it's the next one will come out. It's just going to be probably in a couple weeks. We still got a lot of soccer for Claire to do, and a lot of things are going on. So it's really difficult. But when we see that people are subscribing to our show, I think part of it is we realize that this is a free show. So when we see that you guys subscribe to it, it's an amazing moment. Every time it's like I just got a new little gift in the mail. Because it doesn't, we don't get any money for it. We don't get anything except for satisfaction. So it's really cool. So my point was, we get a little bit of the questions of, well, why don't we actually topic on different police officers around the U.S. and all over the place? Why don't we, subject them who have killed animals, specifically dogs? Why don't we actually topic that? And, it's a 1%. These men and women that are out there every day, they're doing their job the best they can. And we see it all the time. We hear unjustified murder and suicide by police, all this stuff. We really don't want to advocate to any of that. So that's why we don't really want to actually topic on it ever. And every so often I see it. It's out there. There's like one every few months.
Well, then we don't know specifics.
Yeah.
We don't know if the dog lunged. We don't know if... We don't know. And when you don't know and you start speculating, you start sounding like a bunch of jackwagons out there.
Yeah.
And we don't want to do that. Yes, it's out there. If you want to know about it, then you go ahead and look at it. You go ahead and read up on it. Now, if it's become very popular to start doing that, and more, and it's just becoming this epidemic of officers going out there and killing pets,
then we'll topic on it.
Yes, but right now, like you said, it's the 1%. It happens every so often. It's out there. It does happen, but we cannot speculate because we do not have any form of facts on
Right.
it.
And we had
when it's positive stuff, those are facts. Those are stuff you can see. You can see these people working in the community. You see them actually placing dogs in homes. Those are facts that we can follow.
Yes.
Just like what she did. And I think it was a great little soundbite and a great interview that they had.
I thought it was too, and that's why I wanted to do it. Really quickly, back to when we did episode 16 with Steve Gray, the officer at the Rolla Police Department. I had a really good listener who had listened to all previous 15 episodes, really loyal listener. And they sent me a message saying, you need to have this person do an interview with this person first, and because they were very anti-police and K-9 unit, we should do an interview with them and kind of merge the two interviews together. And I refused to actually do that because I felt that would demoralize the actual officer who was going to be on our show, who was giving us his time, and I was not going to do that. And unfortunately,
you don't want to pin somebody who is totally anti one thing.
Yeah.
And then another person that's working very hard to keep all of us safe together. It's not fair.
Yeah, it's just not a right move.
There's people out there with conspiracies up the wazoo. We're not going to do that. We're not that type of podcast. If you want fuel-driven podcasts, go somewhere else that's all into the gossip. But no.
Yeah, we want to keep it always to be a positive, uplifting kind of show, but we don't highlight all the negative. Now, there are stories out there, ain't nobody got time for that moment, where it's like you got to actually highlight that moment. But for the most part, we like to highlight all the good that's out there. So sit back and enjoy this clip.
She works for the LA County Sheriff's Department, but in her spare time, she rescues stray dogs and other animals off the streets. New at 6 Eyewitness News reporter Giovanna Lara introduces us to a woman who also helps these lost animals find a loving home.
For the last 3 years, 30-year-old Brittany Frazier has saved the lives of more than 100 animals. Blossom is among them.
It's a lot of work. It's a lot of love and a lot of poop, but we love it. It's very rewarding and a lot of vet bills, but we We make it work.
Frazier says she plucks them off the street, gets them medical care if they need it, and finds them homes.
Sometimes it takes about 2 weeks to find a home and sometimes 2 years, but we just work on one life at a time.
But for Frazier, rescuing animals is a part-time job. Her real job is with the LA County Sheriff Department, working for the Parks Bureau, which gives her plenty of opportunity to come across lost and roaming strays.
Dogs and cats and a couple bunnies and a raccoon and a turtle and some other things. So.
And her passion for animals is rubbing off on others. Now co-workers are stepping in, alerting her when they see a stray instead of ignoring them as they may have done in the past. She married one of those co-workers who's now co-owner of Brick Animal Rescue and her partner in crime, so to speak.
Whatever it takes, whether it's 6 in the morning or midnight, if there's a dog out there that needs our help, we're going to do it.
Laws prevent Frazier from keeping all the animals she rescues at home, so she boards some of them at the All-Star Pet Resort in Torrance.
She's always very happy and very giving and really has her eye on the prize on getting these dogs adopted.
I don't want to be in a situation where I can't sleep at night, so I definitely focus on doing the right thing, and I always try to help them.
In Torrance, Giovanna Lotta, ABC 7 Eyewitness News.
I absolutely thought that was a cool little segment. So you were saying something before we actually went on. Go and...
My favorite part of that is when she was talking about how, due to the fact that you can only have so many animals by law, she had to start kenneling some of them. I can relate to that so much. It's not even funny. It's all these animals I would love to help. It's got to the point where we're kenneling them. There are 2 dogs right now. I'm not going to say what type of dogs, and I'm not going to say who the owner is. But they are in physical therapy right now and rehab. Can't take care of her 2 dogs. And they're 2 dogs that have to go to a home, if they're being fostered, to a home where they don't have any other animals. They're not very good with other dogs, cats, and such. I can't bring him to my house. Keith can't bring it to his house. Nobody in the other staff can't take him to their house. So Keith offered, look, we know you real well. We understand. We can't do this all the time because obviously we have to keep the doors open. But we will foster your pets. So with all of us combined, we help and we do what we can to foster these 2 dogs. I don't know. I related to that really closely. I thought it was kind of cute the way they said that and how she did that. It's just pretty awesome.
It is. All right. Well, now we got to dive right into our main topic because we got a lot to cover, and that is, of course, I want to start with first aid kit for your pets. The Red Cross had this together, and I wanted to actually start off everything by topicking with this soundbite. If you actually do have a first aid kit for your pet already, then you're already ahead of the game.
Congratulations.
Yep, very much so. If not, here's something to think about.
Hi, I'm Brian. I'm an American Red Cross pet first aid instructor. I thought I'd offer you a quick tip to help you care for your pet, such as the Pet First Aid Kit. Pet first aid kits are excellent tools to help you care for your pet in any emergency situation. In a pet first aid kit, you can have things like gloves and roller bandages to help control bleeding, and gloves to actually help you minimize the risk of disease transmission, not only from yourself, but from yourself to your pet, and maybe even your pet to you as well. Emergency warming blankets for any cold-related emergency. And speaking of cold, ice packs. Excellent tool to have for any pet because you want to help reduce the swelling immediately. And tweezers to remove any of those unsightly ticks that may attach themselves to your pets. Good luck, and hopefully we'll see you in the pet first aid class.
All right, so that gives you an idea about what you could have in your first aid kit. Now, Sarah has a really good point, and that is?
They said to make sure to have tweezers available. And yes, you should have tweezers in there because you never know. You have a dog with a splinter that needs to come out. But definitely put in a pair of hemostats. Same thing like the dogs use, veterinarians and doctors alike. They clamp down. So if you have to remove a tick, first read up on it. Ticks aren't going to kill your dog, but figure something out first. And, do some kind of research to make sure you're getting the head out too. Because if you pull a tick out and the head's still in the skin, it's going to infect and it's going to be terrible. So a pair of hemostats are fantastic to have. And I was going to say something else.
I only know about the hemostats.
Yeah,
there was something else. I don't remember. Yeah, well, one thing you got to know. Okay, go ahead.
I got it. Muzzles. Make sure you have a muzzle that fits your dog properly. You don't want it too loose and you don't want it too tight. You want to make sure that they're not going to bite you and make sure they can still breathe at the same time. Any injured pet, no matter who you are, they're going to protect themselves. And by pulling a tick out, by pulling any kind of splinter out, or bandaging some kind of limb that hurts really badly, they're going to bite. They want you to leave it alone. They don't understand that you're there to try to help. So put a muzzle on them first. And like I said, you can have the sweetest dog in the world. Muzzle them. If you have a dog with a smush face, a pug, a shih tzu, anything with a short snout, Brussels Griffon.
Sounds like a dessert.
Yeah. Make sure you have an e-collar that fits around their neck and will snap into place. So then you can work accordingly to certain spots. Because they will bite. Trust me. Things have happened before. I've trimmed a nail and I didn't realize that the nail of their dew claw was actually grown into their foot. And when you trim it and it doesn't pop out, they try to bite because it hurts. So muzzle them before you have to administrate any kind of hurt spots.
Any kind of emergency care. Okay, the next one we want to topic on is insect bites. So sit back and enjoy.
Hi, I'm Dr. Adrienne Mulligan from Camp Verde Veterinary Clinic, and I'm here to talk to you about insect bites and what you can do at home on behalf of expertvillage.com. Insect bites and scorpion stings and spider bites and fly bites and things like that all happen on a daily basis, and your pet will not necessarily have a problem with most of these unless they have an allergy to them. Many of these insects are not as toxic as people think they are. Black widow spiders, probably not as bad in a dog as most people fear, although if they get enough of a bite in a small enough dog, could cause some neurologic problems. So these are things that may need to see a vet as quickly as possible. But the most common side effect of an insect bite is going to be a swelling of a paw, redness of the skin, or it could be the face or anywhere where the dog has gotten bitten by the insect. And you might see hives all over the body, and hives are just like in people. They're little bumps, and they'll raise the hair, and so you'll notice these little bumps all over your dog with hair raised. And redness around the ears and the eyes and swelling of the face. These are all things that usually happen from a bug bite or a bee sting, something that a dog is allergic to. So there are some things that you can do to help. Number one, it is very safe to give a dog your basic Benadryl. Diphenhydramine is the generic name for it, and you can get either one at your drugstore. And you usually give this at 1 milligram per pound. So if your dog weighs 50 pounds, he can have 50 milligrams. These come in 25 milligram tablets. If you have a little dog that weighs 10 pounds, you might want to get the liquid for children, the plain Benadryl, and follow the directions as to how many milligrams is in a teaspoon so that you don't overdose them. But basically it's 1 milligram per pound orally. Then you can apply ice or ice packs, things that you keep in the freezer for muscle injuries, and you can wrap them with a towel. You can use baking soda if you see the wound to draw out any venom like a bee sting. But the most important part is to get that Benadryl into them, call your veterinarian, get to the veterinarian, and get them treated with some other medications that they would be using. And also, if you can, try to find the insect or identify what actually bit the dog, because it could help. Let's say it was a brown recluse. That's a much more serious spider bite and would require different care. And then, of course, if it were a rattlesnake, that's a whole different story for a different day, and that needs immediate veterinary attention.
All right. So now we've learned a little bit about insect bites and what they can do with our pets. You have something you want to add?
Yes, insect bites, like, say, flies.
Fly.
There is actual cream ointment that you can buy typically at any big box pet store. It's called Flies Off. And you put the salve on, like, tip of the ears. They'll start attacking there. Tip of the nose. It could be the back of their tail area, on the top of their tail, depending on what sticks up away from the actual body of the dog. That is a fantastic salve. And then I agree full-heartedly, if you find the bug that bit your pet, if you can find some way of collecting it. I know I freak out at spiders. We had a spider in our bedroom not too long ago. I screamed like a little girl and I ran.
I was a big spider.
I ran. I dropped my gaming remote and I ran.
Which, folks, that's also my game remote that she just dropped. So.
Or PS4. $50 remote I dropped.
I think they're more than that.
Either way. But keep a close eye out. If your dog's constantly licking in one spot and you don't know why, try to look at it. If they start getting a little hesitation on whether or not they want to bite you, put the muzzle back on that we were talking about during the first aid kit.
Yep.
And then really get down, pull the hair aside, and look at it. And definitely go from there. We had a dog, Rhett, who had a bug bite on his tail. So much hair on his cavalier that the mom didn't know anything. Well, I felt his tail, and his tail was real fat at the base, and it's not normally that fat. Pulled the hair away, and sure enough, there was some kind of bug bite that was real pussy inside. I tried to get as much pus out as possible, got the dog on antibiotics, and the mom dried it up with witch hazel. And now he's back to normal. His tail's normal size.
I feel like when you say that, every time I just think that we're going to be watching some witch make some kind of potion, like, like the movie Hocus Pocus.
Exactly, that's the first thing that comes to my mind.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, there's going to be a Hocus Pocus too. You know that?
Woohoo!
I don't know about that. I don't know. All right. Well, we're going to move on to another one, and it's going to be dog CPR. I think she covers cats as well. I think it's the same method as cats as well.
Yes, this is...
it's from Live with Kelly and Michael. So I saw this, and I was like, okay, I want to actually get that sound bite. So sit back, and hopefully you'll learn a little bit. I did.
See, what do we need to know about in an emergency with a dog?
In emergency, the first thing we need to know is that we're all really nervous and scared. Yeah. So just like with our children, we get like this. So you want to take a deep breath, and we're going to start with bleeding.
Okay.
Okay? The most common thing we have is they're going to be running along, they're going to snag their nails, or you're clipping their nails, and the next thing you know, there's blood everywhere.
Right.
Okay? Always a lot more than you think. We're going to take cornstarch. We're going to add water.
Okay.
We're going to mix it up. We don't let them drink it. Mix it up with, there we go, and then we're going to put that paw right in there. We're going to keep everything, here we go, just like that. Okay?
No, don't.
All right. And we're going to keep everything away from the puppy afterwards.
Okay.
If we have a wound, now we're going to need to clean it. Okay, this gets a little harder. We're going to take scrub. I use my fingers. This is antiseptic scrub.
Antiseptic scrub.
Just soap, okay?
And we just rub it on.
We're going to rub it on the wound.
On the wound.
We're going to clean it off real well with water.
You are so nice.
Soap irritates it.
We'll
rinse it off. And then we're going to take a pad. We need to. And if it's bleeding a lot, you're going to use this pad to hold off, okay? The one thing people want to do, so we're bleeding, they want to go, oh, have we stopped? Oh, we stopped?
Oh, right, and it keeps...
And it keeps bleeding.
You need to apply the pressure and keep it on there.
For at least 3 minutes.
3 minutes.
Which seems like a long time in an emergency.
An eternity.
Yep. From there, now we're going to bandage. Okay? So we take our puppy, take our bandage this way.
Your puppy's over there going, why do I have to be the one?
The one, I know.
My puppy is an angel.
There we go, all the way around. Now, as you do this, keep your finger in the bandage so we don't make it too tight. Because again, we're very scared, so we're going to put it on real tight, okay? We're going to have our scissors. We're going to cut with our scissors because when puppies are hurt or dogs are hurt, they're scared. If you put your face down here, the person that they might get a little upset with is you. So try to keep your face away from their face. Okay?
All right. we're just back from the clip from Kelly and Michael. Did you want to add anything on that one?
No, they're pretty thorough.
I thought it was a really thorough...
It makes me want to go and find a place that is going to be hosting some kind of class for pet CPR.
Right. All right. Well, let's move on to something that's a lot more common than you would all believe. This can be by birth. Sometimes they can be, almost non-existent until they finally come out and rear their ugly heads. But that is seizures. Seizures in pets are actually quite common. So this clip will actually talk about it, and then we'll add a couple things and move on from there.
My name is Sam Meisler, and I'm a small animal veterinarian. In this segment, let's talk about dog seizures. Now, if your dog has had a seizure for the first time, it can be a very frightening experience. Usually a seizure starts out with a repetitive movement of one muscle in the body and then progresses to a generalized seizure where the whole body is convulsing. Sometimes at the end, a dog will lose control of its bowels and go ahead and urinate. Some of them will even be nauseous afterwards and vomit. When a dog comes into our office with a history of having a seizure, the first thing we want to do is do a blood workup. Now, the reason we do a blood workup, we're looking for causes outside the brain that might lower the seizure threshold and cause your dog to have a seizure, like kidney disease, diabetes, liver disease, that sort of thing. We want to rule that out first. If that blood work is normal, then the seizure has originated inside the brain. Causes of seizures that originate inside the brain, most common cause is epilepsy, either inherited epilepsy, which usually occurs at about age 2 to 3, or acquired epilepsy, which can happen at any date, any age. Other causes are different viral diseases, some inflammatory diseases, and rarely even a brain tumor. If the blood work's normal, and we've narrowed it down to the brain, the next step is, if finances can afford it, is to do a CAT scan or MRI. That test will rule out a brain tumor. I mean, that's really the only test we can use to actually determine whether your dog has a brain tumor. A lot of people cannot afford this step, and at that point, we usually stop diagnostics if they can't afford that step and decide whether to put the dog on anticonvulsants to control the seizures or not. If a dog's just having a seizure every month or so, then I'm less likely to put it on an anticonvulsant. If it's having seizures every week, then I'll put it on an anticonvulsant. If it's the first time it's had a seizure, then usually if the dog's otherwise normal, blood work's normal, everything's looking good, I'm going to wait and see what happens. And if it, again, starts having seizures very frequently, we'll put it on an anticonvulsant. Another indication for putting your dog on an anticonvulsant is if it's having seizure clusters or seizure storms. Your dog may go on for a week or two without any seizure at all, and then one afternoon have 6 or 7. If that happens, then we're going to go ahead and put your dog on an anticonvulsant to prevent that exhausting series of seizures occurring. This gives you a basic idea of what we look at in seizures. There's a lot more to it, but at least that gives you a basic introduction to the causes and what we do about dogs who have seizures.
All right. Now, we were just reading an article about seizures this past week. There was a really good article. A lot of times there had been almost an urban myth about seizures in pets that said that the sound of different places could actually create the effect of a seizure in these pups. For example, they said dryers originally was the original thought, and that has been, swamped down to nope, that doesn't exist. So you had something you wanted to topic in on?
Well, I believe that it could be the sound. I believe it could be fast motions. I believe it has to do with something with the eyes and what they see, and then something with the ears, what they hear. From all the dogs that I've grown throughout my career, we've had a few dogs that ended up they ended up seizing, and their seizures can vary on what type. Some can start in as a panic attack. And
that's where I think it all stems from.
Right, they get so they build up their nerves so high, like a pimple, to the point where it's just so much it bursts, and that burst leads to the seizure itself. I've had a dog that didn't mind the sound of blow drying didn't mind the
motions,
didn't mind the feeling until you got closer to around their head. Once you got past their shoulder blades, around their neck, or especially the cavaliers that have long dropped ears, or the cockers, you're not blowing anywhere near their face, but you're blowing something that is attached to their head, and they go into having a seizure. They can lose their bowel movements. They can start biting, not knowing where they're biting. They just bite just to bite. There's no real rhyme or reason why they do this. And then you have to stop, calm them down. I tend to hold them real tight to me so they're not flailing around and hurting themselves. Little dogs, it's a lot easier to deal with. Pippi just came in for a groom, and she had a seizure. And it was not during the bath. It was not during the blow dry. It was not during the grooming. What it was is I took her from her kennel and put her on my table. And she has been groomed since birth, since she was old enough to be groomed. And comes in every 4 weeks. She is on the dot. So this isn't new to her. And the dog's not new to me. And the dog's not new to you.
Nope.
We've been grooming her for a year and a half now. But she had an episode. She couldn't stand. All she wanted to do was to lay on her side, if not on her back. And it took her a good 20 minutes to fully come to. And then even at that, the seizure was so massive that she couldn't stand still.
Right.
So you held on to her for about a good 15, 20 minutes. Got a hold of the owner. And the owner said the only thing that really helps her is put her into a small crate in somewhere dark and quiet. So we got her into a small crate, put a towel, put her in a light, tight room, and left her there for a while. And sure enough, she started barking and barking like she normally does. And I knew she was back to her normal self. So we brought her out and continued grooming her. Everything was fine.
Well, yeah, her eyes ended up going foggy. You had this kind of fog over her eyes, and when and when I was holding her, she was kind of shaking like she was cold. Very odd. Now, we were never privy to the information that she had seizures when she was a puppy. We were never told about this.
And see, the lady has been so used to it that it seemed to be common knowledge. She doesn't have it very often.
Yeah.
The lady explained to me that it could happen 2 times in one day, or she can go months without one. There is no actual rhyme or reason why she goes into her seizures. And she doesn't do it enough to need medication.
Right. For it. Yeah, I think you have to have the dog has to be in a seizure state more than a couple times a week for it to actually need to be on medication. And this happens rare.
Yeah, in the whole year and a half that we groomed, we've never seen this before from her.
Yep.
Freaked me out.
Well, yeah, she had already been done with her bath. She was ready for you, and you brought her in after her bath. She was waiting around, 10, 15 minutes. And then she went on the table, and you didn't even start grooming.
No, I just put her on the table,
you
and
just
she
set her
couldn't stand.
down.
She wouldn't stand.
Yeah.
And that's not like Pippi.
Yeah, it was a very odd moment. So this stuff happens.
Yeah, there's 2 types of seizures. There's what she went through, and then there's very violent seizures where dogs will convulse.
Yeah.
And we have a standard poodle that comes in and sees us. She did it once before, and it was when her mom was in a rush to get her in the salon, and her mom had to go somewhere. And instead of just letting her come in on her own, it was more like, come on, we're going to go now. And her stress level just peaked and then went to a full-blown seizure. So I got down on the floor. I've never witnessed this kind of seizure before. So this was new to me. And I held her head down and I held her back end down because she was convulsing and was hitting her head against the floor. So when a dog does that, you either get a pillow under its head or you hold it down and you restrain them till they come to. And be prepared. They might pee, they might poo on themselves, they might vomit. But that has to be all done with understanding and no punishment towards the dog for doing it.
Right.
But yeah, just keep in mind these different things that can happen. And as far as I know, there really is no medical reason for it.
No, there's something in the brain that actually causes it, and there's that, as we said, there are ways of medicating it, but they will only medicate it if the dog actually goes through it multiple times per week.
And if a dog ends up having the seizures while being groomed, the best bet is to sedate your dog. I'm not talking about completely put them out to where they're asleep.
Right.
But enough to put them in a twilight that things aren't going to bother them. Because when I see it, it's things that bother the dog so much, they end up doing this.
Right, and we have our fair share of dogs that have special needs. We've said this on previous podcasts. We have our cases where, they have panic attacks, they have seizures. There are a lot of different cases like this, and you have to treat them all accordingly the same way, with very soft hands.
And then once they're done and they start coming to, sometimes they don't come to fully and be fully awake right away. So you want to make sure they're in somewhere quiet. Make sure their stress level is not there. There is nothing to stress out over. And calmly talk to them, pet them, let them lean up against you because it takes them a while to get their legs back underneath them. Just like you said, carrying hands, calm, and they'll feel your calmness. I know the seizures are very scary, but you got to keep your composure for your dog.
Right. Let's topic onto snake bites. Some places are very rare. And it's weird because when I was looking these things up, it wasn't a common thing you could actually get some sound bites for. So ours comes from overseas. But this will actually be kind of fun for a lot of our overseas listeners, Australia and Europe and everything like that. They'll be like, oh, okay, this is kind of cool for us. So sit back and hopefully this gives you some good information.
There are renewed warnings that snakes are on the move in Brisbane after a 2-metre eastern brown came off second best when it attacked a dog in the western suburbs. The deadly reptile bit the staffy twice, but the dog fought back and won.
5-year-old Frank couldn't walk this morning. He'd been paralysed by a snake bite. Much to the relief of owner Matt Burrows, though, he's recovering quickly.
Yeah, looks much better.
On Friday, he was attacked in a Bellbowrie backyard by this 2-metre eastern brown.
He was bitten on the tongue and there was also some bleeding under his neck. Frank was frothing at the mouth and was shaking and falling over.
Suffering from fast-acting venom, somehow Frank fought back and killed the snake.
For a dog of that size to survive a King Brown, pretty impressed.
He was rushed to the vet, sedated and taken into surgery.
We were told when we first brought him here that he'd have a 60% chance of recovery, so that was a bit concerning.
Luckily, Frank will return home in 2 days, but he's not the only victim this year.
This is the third brown snake bite we've treated here in Bellbowrie in the last 2 months.
And as the warmer months approach, there will be more. The advice from wildlife experts is if you do see a snake of any type in your backyard, leave it alone. If it's inside your home, contact a snake handler.
It's not worth risking your life if you make a mistake on what species it is. Obviously, if you grab him, he's going to bite you.
A list of snake catchers based along the coastline can be found at snakecatcher.com. Michael Scanlon, 7 News.
All right. Well, with snakes, now I know living in California, we didn't deal with snakes ever. In Southern California, you hardly ever do. I never did. But if you live in the countryside or you live on a farm,
right
you're gonna,
off a river.
Yeah, you're going to. We have a creek right by us, and we have snakes that come up this way. We have the gardener snakes, which don't do any harm to dogs, but there are other snakes. So you have to be really cautious. I think one way you're going to know that your dog was bit by a snake is it's going to be limping, obviously.
Yeah, because that's nothing to fool around with.
No. That's when you're going to want to actually look for puncture wounds. And you're going to know it's a snake bite because it's going to have that, distinct puncture of a snake bite. it's going to be a little harder for you to figure out what kind of snake bit your dog. But that's one of those things that I wouldn't even waste any time. Take it to the vet. It may need to actually get venom drained from its paw or wherever it was actually struck. So definitely something you need to actually be worried about if you're in an area that has snakes. I guess if you lived in some parts of California, I mean, you know, parts in Orange County like we were, like Anaheim Hills and different
the
things.
desert area.
Yeah.
And such.
Ontario, you know, things like that. Yeah, I could see that. Well, I never did where I was. I was in a concrete metropolis, and snakes were in you know, fish tanks instead as pets. They weren't out swarming around. So it's always weird. It's like, it's so weird for me to live where I live now, and
unless we lived in Fullerton and my 4-foot ball python got out of its kennel or out of its tank.
yeah, thank you very much. That's a story we'll share with the listeners another time. But you talk about just barely dating somebody and reasons to run. Yep, that was one.
It was just a 4-foot.
That thing was
ball
huge.
python.
That was huge.
That was it. 4 foot. She wrapped around my neck, and we went out everywhere.
You're a weirdo.
You should have seen my my iguana that we had. That thing was ginormous.
Nope. All right. Well, the last one I want to actually, you know, play for you guys is bees. Bees are common. They're everywhere, and for good reasons. We need bees. But, you know, your dog might actually end up by a nest. The nest may have fallen out of a tree. Or a nest, I said hive. Thank you. Well, looking at a tree, you know, I'm thinking of a nest. Yes, hive may have fallen out of a tree. And your dog may decide to stick its nose inside the opening. And that can cause some problems. So, wanted to play this clip on bees. Last one of our clips that we're going to play for you guys. And hopefully you guys have, you know, picked up some knowledge on this.
Labs are really prone to a lot of rashes and allergies. And one of the things that you might see on your dog someday is you might come out and all of a sudden your dog's got hives all over it. The nose is swollen. There's little lumps and bumps, hives on the face. If you look down, you can kind of see the hives. The eyes are swollen. The ears are bright red and swollen. Look how thick they are. This dog has had a very intense allergic reaction to something. So what we do is we give it a cortisone shot, and we usually give it also some hydroxyzine injectable so that we can get it over its hives. So we'll show it to you in a little while. So Kim's trying to massage the hives out. That's not really part of the treatment. She's petting him because he feels better. Here's Clyde Costa after a few hours. Clyde got stung by probably a yellow jacket or a bee, or maybe even ate something that really bothered him. He had a lot of swelling on one side of his face. You can still see that lips more swollen than this side. His ears were bright red and still are pretty red, and they're very thick. They're very thick, and I showed you that before. But this ear is still pretty thick. This is one of the worst reactions I've seen from an insect bite. Let's look inside his mouth and see if I can see a sting on the side of the swollen. No, there doesn't look to be. Well, this can happen to a dog that either got stung by a bee, could eat something that it's not used to. If the swelling comes up slowly and just is a bit swollen, you could probably get by using an antihistamine like Claritin or Benadryl. Benadryl usually works better. So, if your dog gets stung by a bee and the swelling doesn't appear too bad, you can look on my Dog Ditch Diet website, get my free home remedy download for the antihistamines that you can use. But if your dog gets a lot of swelling and a lot of redness, like Clyde did, then you probably ought to seek veterinary assistance. Many swellings will go away in just a couple days. So it's not really, most of these aren't very critical. They usually don't have trouble breathing, and they usually don't go into anaphylactic shock like we do. But monitor your pet very carefully. If the swelling starts to get severe, it starts to get raspy, then you ought to go into an emergency clinic.
All right. Well, that's going to actually, be our last clip we're going to listen to, and that was on bees. Now, you wanted to add something to that.
If you have honeybees or anywhere near your house, I just want to say, folks, please call somebody that can remove them safely and relocate these honeybees somewhere else. We are having such a bad shortage of honeybees.
Yes.
And honeybees are so important to our ecosystem. Please don't just try to call an exterminator to come kill them all. Try to reach out to a conservation that will take them, and most of the time it's no charge to the actual homeowner or wherever you live. They'll come out and they'll extract the bees and their hives and stuff and move them somewhere where they can flourish and away from society.
And populate.
Exactly, and properly reproduce. Just please, don't call an exterminator for...
To foam them, yeah.
Yeah, wasp nests. That's one thing. I can't handle wasps.
It's weird. I had a wasp right by the car when I was waiting for... That was weird. Waiting for Claire to the mic just went down.
Oh.
Yeah, it was just the mic. I was just like, that shouldn't have moved like that, but it did. Yeah, I had a wasp. I'm like, oh God, just get away, get away. I'm always afraid of getting stung by a wasp. I'm always afraid of being stung by any bee.
We were in Oregon one time, and back when my family used to live in Oregon, they were cutting down big, huge trees to make room for more farming land. And my middle brother, Danny, was dating the daughter of the property owner that had all these trees cut down. And he was goofing off, and they were jumping from log to log, and my brother landed in a bumblebee nest.
Ouch.
And was stinging him the whole way home as he was hightailing it back home. And oh my gosh, he had a total of like 40 bee stings all over. Oh.
If that happens, yeah, a lot of people would die from that. That could be a bad thing. So, to conclude this episode, we want to make sure that everybody, is aware of everything that's around them, everything that they need to know for their pets, because obviously, there's a lot of, emergency management you have to know when having a pet. Things can sprung up. It's just like having a kid. I mean, just all of a sudden can happen. You're like, oh no, what do I do? And to save your pet's life, a little bit of this knowledge might help you.
And it also, emergencies can happen to where it's not an act of God. It wasn't nature or earthquake, flood. It could be a simple thing as you have to get out of town right away. Life and death emergency or something happened. You had to get out of town. Make sure you have a backup plan at home to make sure those pets are taken care of. Find at least one person that you trust with a key. Make sure that you have at least 3 people in case person 1 and person 2 are too busy. That person 3 can help.
Right.
And take care of your situation while you're gone.
Right. Yeah, contact list. If you don't have an emergency boarding situation, you can't board your dog or even cat. You don't have anybody, have a contact list of people that you can bring your dog to for that emergency. Because, things do happen. There's unfortunate, deaths in family, unexpected trip by, for work. There's a lot of things that can happen.
And then scope out your local kennels that you want to board your pet at in case you do have to take off. If sometimes you got to take off during a holiday, see if, have 3 or 4 different kennels that you will trust, starting with option A, B, or C, or D.
Yep.
And try to have your friend get them into at least one of them. Have proof of rabies shots available. Any kind of medical issues, a list of prescriptions that the dog needs to take, stuff like that. Keep it on hand, just like you would for your father that is elderly, that has a whole binder of medical.
Not a lot of people don't make those binders like I do. There are binders that I like a full range binder. The CYA binder is what I like to call it. Cover you get it. It would actually have full detail on if there are health conditions for your pet, whether it was seizures or previous medical thing,
diabetic,
yes,
your dog needs insulin shots.
or
so
had surgery for this, or needs special food, and what that food is, what
If
the
they're
diet is, and
aggressive towards children,
Exactly.
aggressive towards other animals, aggressive towards strangers, a full range.
Yep. This binder can take you, it will take you a while to make, a couple days, but it'll serve you best in the long run, especially in these, circumstances. And I guess I should have mentioned that in the first aid part. That binder would be helpful.
Right. Either way, it got said.
It got said. All right. Well, again, this was the April's National First Aid Awareness Month edition of our podcast, and we hope that you all have picked up a little bit of knowledge from this. By making this podcast, we learned a little bit as well.
Yeah.
So, we're all able to learn a little bit from it, and if we learned something, then I guess we did our job. Well, I'm Chris Green. Have a pet-tastic week.
And I'm Sarah Green, making sure everybody realizes life is so short. Play with your pet.
Goodbye, everybody.
Okay, gotta go in my bedtime.
Was without doubt the worst episode ever. Rest assured that I was on the internet within minutes, registering my disgust throughout the world.